All right, it's an exciting time in AdventureWorks world because it's time for us to insert our first line chart. And if you remember our sketch, we're going to drop a weekly revenue trending chart right here in kind of the center left real estate of our executive dashboard tab. So let's go ahead and insert that line chart. Drag it kind of roughly into position. I think something like this looks about right. And let's go ahead and build our visual out, starting with x-axis. That's going to be like our time period, right? So let's go ahead and find week, and we're going to pull in start of week there. And for y-axis, these are the values that we want to visualize. In this case, total revenue. We don't need a secondary y, we don't need a legend quite yet, so this looks good from a building standpoint. Now let's talk about formatting. Remember, we have this kind of quick access format pane here that lets us select or deselect common chart elements. And we've got a bunch of options here with line charts. We can add zoom sliders, markers, data labels, even things like trend lines and forecasts, which we're going to cover in a bit more depth in just a minute. But one thing that I've noticed about this is that if you activate these settings, like zoom sliders for instance, it's going to activate them with just default settings. So in this case, it puts a zoom slider on both the y and the x-axis, which may not be exactly what we want. So I often find myself going straight to the format pane where you have a bit more control, even though it might be a little bit overwhelming, just given how many options there are. And if that's the case, if you feel overwhelmed or you're not quite familiar with all of the options here in the formatting pane, remember we do have the on-object formatting available for line charts. And to access that, you can double-click kind of any blank area in the chart. You see it's activated with that blue border. That tells me I'm in edit mode. And now just like a tool like Excel, you can kind of highlight different components of the chart and you can right click to format that specific element. So if I click format title, for instance, it's going to drill me straight into the title formatting options within that pane. I can also select and edit or delete items right here inside of the chart as well, like our axis labels, for instance. So multiple ways to accomplish the same thing. Ultimately, it's going to come down to what you're most comfortable with. So what I'd like to do now is apply a bit more custom formatting to kind of fit the style and the vibe of the rest of our dashboard. And to do that, I'm going to spend some time in here in the visual options of our format pane. So first things first, let's customize the title. And this is kind of just like a default placeholder, which you can delete. I'm going to update this to weekly revenue. And we've been using that heading 3, that's just fine. For font, let's kind of be consistent and use that Seago UI font across the board. Bring that down to a font size of 10. And let's align that centered above our chart. That looks good. We can kind of compress those title options. For x-axis, I think all I'd like to do here is maybe just drop down the value size a little bit from size 9 to size 8. Let's do the same with our y-axis. Looks good. Nothing with grid lines. We do want a zoom slider here, but we don't want both axes. I just want to be able to zoom time periods on the x. So let's drill into our zoom options, deselect y, and that's just going to leave us with our x-axis zoom, which looks great. I don't really like the default blue line, so we can go ahead down here, drop the stroke width a little bit from 3 to 2 pixels, and let's change the color from that blue to that medium dark gray that we've been using throughout the dashboard. And then I don't think we need to mess with any of these other settings quite yet. We've got data markers, labels, backgrounds, trend lines, error bars, forecasts, anomalies. There's some fun stuff in here that we'll dig into soon, but for now I think that's pretty good for these basic visual options. The last thing I want to customize are the tooltips. Now, we're still in edit mode here, so we can just kind of select off that chart and back in. Now we're out of edit mode, and you can see the tooltips are basically these boxes that pop up as you hover and pause over specific data points. It's a really nice way to add or embed additional data points or information into a chart without overwhelming the visual. And to format those, you actually need to head to the Properties pane inside of the Format menu. You'll see your tooltip options right here. This is going to be a default tooltip. And I want to change both the text and the background. So for text, let's make the label colors white. Let's make the value colors that nice bright blue. And for drill text, let's make that white as well. And for background, I want those white and blue values to pop against a black background. Very similar style to what we did with these KPIs at the top of the dashboard. So we're going to do that dark gray background here with just a little bit of transparency. Let's do 10%. And now if we see what that looks like, boom, check that out. We got that nice dark tooltip that really pops off the page, and we're using those consistent fonts and font colors. So that looks pretty good to me for now. We're going to be revisiting this chart a few more times to add some additional features later on, but at this stage, I think this is exactly what we need.